We had a situation, donated auditorium being built. I got called in before we got to the construction part, but they'd done a lot of design work. And there were columns down the center of the auditorium. Is there any way we can adjust the structure support so we don't have these columns down the middle? He said, oh, those aren't for structure. I just thought they looked really neat. I said, well, you realize I'm going to have a projector in the back of the room and a screen in the front, and there's going to be a big shadow right down the middle of it. So we got those moved, but they don't think about the AV a lot of times in the initial design.
But I don't like this clown.
I wouldn't take it down if I were you. It's a load-bearing poster.
On this episode, we discuss IPMX, AV market growth, and AV having a bigger role in higher ed. All that and more on EdTech. EdTech episode 134, Doing More with Less. Hello, AV friends, and welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome higher ed AV professionals, Ernie Bailey. Hey, Ernie.
Oh, Aaron, glad to be back again.
And we've got with us Rob Rasberry. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Aaron, always glad to be here.
Yeah. And today's special guest joining us for this episode is Chris Kelly from Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about what you do over there at Creighton.
So over at Creighton, I'm one of there's three of us that are senior IT support specialists. So sort of the closest approximation to tier 2, low tier 3 that we have for support here for our classroom technology, the projectors, the audio video, lectern computers, that kind of thing. Support of that kind of stuff across campus. We do also have a campus down in Phoenix, and we're standing one up down in the Dominican Republic. So we'll see what kind of support we have to do for that long distance as well. That could be exciting if I get a chance to go down there. We recently had our kind of design classroom architect leave here, so doing what I can to learn blueprints a little bit more and step into that a little bit to support in the interim of that position being vacated.
All right. Very cool. And that'd be super nice if you get to head down to the Dominican Republic just to, check things out, then get in a little vacay while you're at it.
Yeah, just let me go punch out this one room, and I'm sure it might just take me a week or two to do that.
Slowly get through it. Well, all right, let's get to these articles. So this first one was written by Andrew Starks and can be found on AVNation.tv. IPMX in context, following the hype cycle to the future of open AV over IP. Let's discuss IPMX IPMX. Where it's at, where does it belong in the AV over IP discussion for us higher ed folks?
I hear Tim Albright's voice in my head when I read this article because he talks about it being the new AVB and, that there's always the hype machine going on about it. And while things sound very optimistic about it, things are optimistic about a lot of things, and then they never maybe materialize or they don't get standardized as much as we would like. So I'll be curious to see if this is the thing that this time makes it through.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Let's build one and build on it and not start over every 3 years.
Well, right. That's the thing. That's with AV, all of the standards.
Yes.
So let's add a new one. Another one on top of the others.
But let's just have one that works and that everyone can agree on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of AV, having kind of open standards so that we get away from these walled gardens. But at the same time, though, it's if you're already kind of invested, because I feel like AV over IP has kind of been a train in motion, and are you really gonna start all over, shift gears, or just supplement to
I mean, if you've got an infrastructure based on something, then it can be hard to go, oh, hey, I'm suddenly switching today from this to this. You don't see a lot of the big names saying, oh, hey, now we're going to support this on our technology when we've already got our own proprietary brand of it going on. So who's going to be the first big name place that says, oh, yeah, we're all in on IPMX. Forget that thing that we did all on our own that we made a lot of money on. I mean, you need to get some more buy-in by some of the bigger names that people are using more often to be able to say, this is worthwhile for me to proceed down that path and reinvest millions of dollars in.
I think maybe if your campus is brand new to AV over IP, or you've been kind of slower to roll it, or you're kind of like, it has its uses, but we haven't gotten there yet. So maybe as they're approaching it, that's great. But yeah, for those who already were like, AV over IP, I'm in.
So, this is an area as far as IPMX, and I'm not completely familiar with, but it seemed like in talking with the article, it had gone beyond some of the hurdles of some of the other formats. It seemed like, there was a question of demand when, does it work, and the open standards. And it seems like I'm not going to say a step ahead of some of the other formats that are being used currently. It looks like it's on the cusp of being readily adopted rather than is it going to work. So I'm not sure I got the right gist out of it, but I don't know, Ernie, Chris, and Aaron, if that's the way you read it as far as the whole development roadmap that it was going down.
That's kind of what I was reading through it. And, if it's a true AV over IP, we can go through any network switch. We don't have to have a proprietary switch. And, we're only talking about the two endpoints. And if it's an open platform, we're not stuck with one manufacturer at all times. So, that I could see us transitioning to it in that situation. But if I've got to buy brand X for both ends of every single device, which is where I am right now on most things, we're seeing some stuff that we can pass through and they'll talk to each other, which is where I'd like us to be. So, we can find the best points for each one. But if I'm having to, buy a single brand, I'm going to stick with what I know unless someone can make it, very affordable. And, the issue we have is acceptable to our network engineers as well. Is it going to shut down the network? We ran into that with early NVX. We shut down a section of the hospital imaging system. After sitting there with the network engineers, showing them what we were going to put in, gave them about 3 months to look at it and review it while we're waiting for all the components to get here. And they said, oh, this is no big deal. We stream more than this at home. You can't really be using this much. Well, we plugged it in, and 15 seconds later, we got a phone call. What did you just do? Well, what we told you we were going to do when we left your office yesterday. So, I don't want that to happen. I want something, once again, that is acceptable, affordable bandwidth. It plays well with everything else on the network. We get our QoS that we need, but we don't block everything else. We don't have to have a dedicated network all the way across campus just for us.
Well, in a lot of things, we try to, in the ideal, because we run on a converged network, we have ideally the 3 VLANs, one for control, one for audio, one for video. With something like this, separating of signals or still having enough NICs, and then are you IPMX on each of those NICs to try and have the signals separated out, or are they going to try and put everything on one line, and then you're going to have clock leader battles and layer 2 flooding that's going to cause everything to crash out on you when you get to the point that you've got a very busy network as opposed to maybe the more limited segments that they've tried with their, the equipment that there's not a lot of equipment with it at this point, but you try and toss it on a university campus where you got a lot of stuff talking, you might be in trouble.
I definitely appreciated the format of the article, that they took it from looking at it through the lens of Gartner's hype cycle And yeah, I guess I didn't even realize until I had read this article that IPMX has been around for 5 years already. And maybe just the word hasn't spread enough, or enough education about it to really push it out there more. I don't know.
I mean, a concept can live for a while, but if you don't have the hardware to back it enough so that you can set it up in your system, then it's not doing you any good. I mean, you can have SMPTE 2110 all day, but without the stuff, it's not doing you anything. So it can be another 5 years until we're actually seeing mass-produced stuff that speaks on it.
And that's the issue with the open source, is they're taking a big chance on, will people buy into it? Will they stick to the standard? Will they try to make their own version of it, their own flavor? And, where are we going to go from there? I mean, we've seen that. Well, they start out talking about AVB. We keep hearing talk about Dante video, and others have talked about, if they had an audio over IP, adding video to it, and we see it demonstrated at trade shows, but then it never makes it out, and we're stuck wondering, and where are we going to get? Is it going to work for us? So, if we can come up, with a platform that will work, and that the vendors will support, manufacturers will support, then I'm all for it. But I'm not holding my breath.
This next piece comes to us from AV Magazine at avinteractive.com. AV market growth forecast falls from 5.3% to 3.9% a year. Now, those numbers are based on AVIXA and them downgrading their 5-year projection for growth in the AV market. The decrease is due to uncertainty arising from tariffs, geopolitical issues, and high interest rates. But despite that, the AV market is still expected to grow faster than the global GDP by a small margin, but 0.8% a year. So in higher ed, though, are we feeling this flowing growth of the overall industry?
So I think in general, higher education has been challenged, and with more than just these, topics. I think that in some way, the very foundation that higher ed is built on is being challenged. There's people saying, well, do you really need a degree? Do you really need higher education? And those influence what's happening with a lot of our institutions. Some attendance in a number of institutions is down. We're told, as far as our budgeting goes, we have to do more with less for the time being until we get back to that higher ground. So and then, of course, in anticipation of tariffs and in anticipation of higher costs of installation, if you're lucky enough to have, gotten the equipment you need before this happened, that's great. But if you get it after, then now your projects cost more, and you have to think about prioritizing, well, maybe where you were able to refresh 4 rooms, now you can only do 3 or 2. So, and obviously things vary by institution to institution. There are some institutions that are doing better than others, but at least from my perspective, and, Aaron, Ernie, and Chris, I don't know what, you've been experiencing. It seems like it's shrunk a little. I don't think it's ever going to go away. But with everything that's been happening as of late, and especially in our country, it, I think, has shrunk that a little bit.
I think, I don't know that I'm seeing my budgets shrink, but I'm not getting adjustments for tariffs. And therefore I'm trying to buy as much as I can, as fast as I can, maxing out my storage space as we're trying to refresh rooms. There's talk about budget cuts, but haven't seen any yet. So I'm trying to get orders placed so I can get in We got 6 refreshes we're getting ready to start up here in the next few weeks. Plan on putting out my request for quotes early next week. My lead engineer is enjoying a week of vacation after a great big rollout of multiple rooms and multiple projects at the same time that ended last week. He finished on Thursday evening and headed out of town. Said he'll be back next Friday. So as soon as he gets back, we're going to roll out our request for quotes. We've already got the design work done on the rooms. I had my programmer quit, hired a new programmer started this week. So hopefully we're going to be able to keep going. Like I said, I don't see us getting any budget cuts right now. And, every time we get a quote, if it has the word, tariff on it anywhere, we have to get a secondary letter saying if you order within the next 48 hours, the price will be honored type deal. So, which helps me get things through our procurement things faster if I've got that letter. So
Just falsely include that word tariff on everything for the next decade, even after the issue is gone. Oh, it's got a tariff on it. Better get that PO ordered quick. I mean, I think most of us know of people in higher ed that are at universities that have had a reduction in force. Maybe not at our own personal universities, but we know of people that their teams are now shorter. They're working and doing the more with less instead of maybe an ideal less with less. We've been fortunate here. We haven't hit any sort of enrollment cliff here like we were hearing about at a number of other locations. They're working more with the numbers, less that way, more, okay, maybe we look at less trips or we look at less something else. So it's not having an overt effect on things. We are looking at having maybe more spares of some stuff instead of, looking at what's maybe new, what's maybe better, but what can we have as more spares to back stuff up to maybe before our price increases on something. So we've got some more on the shelf to maybe make something last a little bit longer than it otherwise would have. Just seeing what we can do to keep things stable and sort of evaluating our refresh cycle at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my, I've basically been, no travel, no unnecessary projects or spending. So it's then now we have to get kind of thoughtful about some of the refreshes that we were going to be doing in the summer. Be like, well, what's the priority? What needs to absolutely get done? Because this is limping on its last leg. What can get by with the Band-Aids? What can we push off another year or in that? So it's kind of like, all right, let's get creative here. What can we do? But I feel like there then are some of those universities that maybe, and colleges that are maybe not necessarily as financially pressed as some of the larger ones that have felt like very much attacked, that they are feeling with the number of attendees they're getting, like they're getting less applications, those sorts of things. I think those are maybe the schools that are, even though it's going to cost them up front to get ahead technology wise, that might be their way to then attract more students by using the technology. So those might be might be the kind of instance where there is some growth kind of potential. But a school like Johns Hopkins, they're not going to do that because they're like, well, the number of applications, that's not one of the things that they're the most worried about. They're more worried about the problems with research dollars and that sort of thing, or just the international students bringing in less money in that respect, potentially. But are there areas that you could think of within higher ed technology, that there could be a bit of an upswing. So one of the things I'm thinking of is what we had just discussed, AV over IP. If a school hasn't made that investment yet, that might be where there's still
maybe for schools that aren't as much into the lecture capture, or for some sort of synchronous hybrid, high flex, whatever, that can increase their students without necessarily increasing their seating capacity. And that can allow for some significant additional options. Where maybe before it would have been, we have this campus, we know what we have our limitations. Now maybe we can allow for some other things that we didn't have before. Maybe we can allow for some classes in different hours. Maybe we can allow for some more asynchronous options, whatever it might be. That could be a way to have a reason to dip more into those things.
Part of what we've been doing on our refreshes is we're looking at some of the older rooms, which were really some of the ones that were built just before we really got into the COVID era and stuff, that did not have, they were designed for in-room only. So we're taking those rooms and we're bringing them, up to good hybrid capability. So, they've got multiple cameras, ceiling mics, and easy switch and confidence monitors, things that we didn't usually put into a smaller classroom. Smaller for us is anything that seats less than 40. But taking those and bringing them up to the standard that we established during the pandemic when we needed to put conferencing in any new rooms that we rolled out. So that's our deciding factor, which rooms to do now.
So this last one is from Commercial Integrator, written by Gaurav Bradu. How AV teams have become crucial players in higher ed. Well, we all know that. We live it day after day. But how are our AV IT teams playing a bigger role on our campuses these days?
So this is interesting. I was really excited about this article. So I was trying to come up with some kind of byword. So we are educators of technology at higher education institutions. We are teachers. We are technically, in a way, professors for the faculty, for the administration, and by allowing them to show them technology and how things work. Faculty can adjust the way that they teach, how they teach in different areas, different colleges, different methods. Do I have to say pedagogy? I said it. I said it.
Yes.
So, and so with, faculty more adopting the technology, things open up for them and they discover better ways to teach the students. And because we are there, we are the ones that have to support, educate, teach, train all these people on the ways that the rooms work, the technology works. So we are an integral part. You can't just have a teacher or a professor or even an administrator walk into a room with great technology and not know how to use it. And beyond that step, effectively using the technology, not just being able to. So there's different levels of this. So when I saw this article, I was like, yeah, that's right. We are integral to this.
We kind of have been for a while at our campus, strictly because, being a health science campus, the audio and visual portion of the education is integral because you've got to be able to show images. We play heart sounds and blood vessel sounds, things like that through our sound system. So we've been part of developing any new teaching facilities over the last couple of decades. But one thing that I wrote the other day, that we were trying to come up with some new things for an enhanced web page that we were looking at for internal use, and supporting and enhancing the audiovisual experience for the faculty, staff, and students is what we do. And if we can sell that, like Rob was saying, make the rooms equipped with the technology and then teach them how to use it. One thing we're doing with our new rollout is we have one program that works in every classroom. So the touch screen is the same. It doesn't matter, which room you go into. If you've learned to use room A, you can use room Z. If something happens in the room or your schedule got changed, we got to put you somewhere else. You don't have to relearn it. I've said this on this program before, but our philosophy is when the students are walking from the dorm to the lecture hall, they're not saying, is the projector going to be in focus today, or is there a buzz in the sound system? They're saying, I didn't understand what I was supposed to read last night. I need to remember to ask a question. And when the instructor's walking from his office to the lecture hall, he's not saying, is the laser pointer battery changed, or is the microphone in the room today? It wasn't there last time. That's not what he's thinking. Or what button do I push? He's thinking, this is what I need to teach. Once again, we're a health science school. I tell my staff that, think about this. In 20 years, you're going to be in a hospital room, and the person's going to be taking care of you is one of these students that was in here. Do you want them to have missed that one lecture they needed for what's wrong with you today? So we want to make sure the lectures happen and the information is able to get to the students. And by having that philosophy and making sure the faculty and the administration know that that's our philosophy, gives us the opportunity to lead in the design of the teaching facilities.
I mean, particularly from a med school perspective, that's where a lot of we have people that it can be a struggle to get to campus to present to the students. A lot of doctors that aren't going to get that kind of time away from where they're practicing. We can bring a whole lot of people in real easily by having a system that can put it up on a projector, that they can have a nice interactive experience even though they're not in the room with that doctor somewhere else. Students that are overdoing, the M2, the M3 over at a hospital that are not wanting to bounce over to campus for classes that day, but can come and join in and still feel like they're part of that room. And then we've got a lot of classes that are synchronous between here and Phoenix at some of our medical stuff down there. And to make it so that they all feel like they are part of one classroom and not, I've had my hand up for the last half hour, but the instructor hasn't been able to notice me. It's good AV that makes that possible. Otherwise, you just feel like you're a second-class citizen. I'm glad that this article also talked about accessibility, and that's a part that's kind of personal to my heart. And there's a lot of things that we all need to do better with accessibility, admittedly, but the AV realm is responsible for a lot of that, making people, not have to out themselves if they're wanting to listen to some kind of audio assistance kind of thing, having different options for that asynchronous recording, so someone who maybe couldn't make it to class that day is still able to feel like they were part of that classroom. Having different parts of your system that's maybe able to accommodate different things with minimal impact so that every student feels like they're on a fairly equitable stance, at least as much as possible. Again, we all need to do better, but that's another one of those places that we are trying to make a better future for people.
And it's amazing that our departments are becoming very central to a lot of like renovation projects and stuff like that, because they're starting to realize that the facilities team, they'll talk with the contractors and the construction teams and everybody and stuff like that. But really it's what we're doing that is going to determine where the power goes, where the network goes, where all of these things are. And we have to be involved on that ground level, helping build these spaces out right from the very beginning, as opposed to coming in after the fact and going, none of this is going to work.
Hopefully we're in from the ground in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. It's a slow learn, but getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we had a situation, it's been a number of years now, but we had a donated auditorium being built. Okay, it was all pre-funded, everything, and the donor had selected the architect. Well, I got called in before we got to the construction part, but they'd done a lot of the design work, and there were columns down the center of the auditorium. And it was not that large of a building. So I said, is there any way we can adjust the structure support so we don't have these columns down the middle? He said, oh, those aren't for structure. I just thought they looked really neat. I said, well, you realize I want to have a projector in the back of the room and a screen in the front, and there's going to be a big shadow right down the middle of it. So we got those moved, but that's something they don't think about the AV a lot of times in the initial design. They just wanted something unique. It was going to be very unique.
Right, you're like, well, I hope they didn't put seats like behind those columns.
There probably would have been. We got the columns removed. Like I said, they were just cosmetic, but
that would have been an awesome experience. Those are the cheap seats, the obstructed view.
Yes.
Well, all right, everybody. This has been a fantastic episode, and thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. Again, great conversations being had. So, Chris, if someone wants to reach out to you after this episode airs, where can they get in touch with you?
First and foremost, I would say through the HETMA community. I'm the advisory board chair on HETMA. We have meetings almost weekly with manufacturers, bringing folks in to take a look at what's coming up next in the world of AV. I'm also on the site daily. I've got a pretty good record of days going on there. Otherwise, I am at LinkedIn has me. You can look me up there. Never hesitate to reach out with any questions about this or in general. I love to get connected with new people. And I'm also starting to write some articles for the higher ed AV media. I have a few up there now.
Fantastic. And how about you, Ernie?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
And Rob?
LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on the HETMA community, and each month here on AVNation's EdTech podcast that can be found on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find other AVNation podcasts like Women in AV, State of Control, AV Career Mastermind, and more. See you next time.
The network for the AV industry. What are you listening to? This
This is AV.
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hey listeners, it's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.